Hello everyone, it's your favorite FGC VTuber here. So this is something that I wanted to talk about. I've said this several times for those who already know me, but I want to just get this out the way, and it's about the that no one really cares about current or modern GPUs and why that's the case. I mean, there's already a video that Linus did and all the other two guys as well, but this one with Vex, I mean, I'd probably steal his thumbnail, but I want to give it from my perspective as someone who is, like, I'm definitely a gamer, right, obviously, but I think I'm not as tech savvy as, say, all four of these guys, for sure. So I'm at the lower end of the spectrum, but by most modern gamers, I'd be like, oh, you know, up there. You know, I have my own PC, I have two, you know, built my first one, and really what I want to get is something that they both touched on, right? But one of the first reasons I want to get to as to why I definitely agree and believe that GPU, no one cares, is that they're not that impressive. I mean, some people, I remember one of my friends was coping so hard, saying, oh, they're so much better. No, they're not. These new cards, I mean, it's not even a secret that they're almost more built for ray tracing or maybe some new AI thing, which no one uses anyways. And the big problem with ray tracing, right? Let's see, the big number of issues, ray tracing. No one gives a shit. Like, the only game you can see, two games that you're like, oh, okay, you know what makes a big difference and you can feasibly use it without destroying your frame rate is goddamn Quake and Minecraft. Very ungraphically intensive games. I think ray tracing is kind of pointless. I'd rather, Linus hit it best, I'd rather reinvest technology into HDR. Like, I don't think there's that much point going higher in resolution, let alone HDR. So that's the other thing. Like, 1080 and 1070 could already do 4K for last-gen games. People say, oh, but you get more graphics, this and that. Still bullshit. Because we all know these people don't know how to optimize a goddamn thing. And when we have technology that's, you know, AMD FSR or whatever, that's supposed to give you artificial resolutions and upscaling, then what the fuck are we on about? It's like, oh, higher textures, and then someone wants to give the higher textures thing. Bro, someone explained to me how one of these cards has as much memory as my GTX 1070. So that whole thing about, like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And then when you do compare them side by side, right? Like, oh, of course there's gonna be a difference, but bruh, when you look at like the RTX 3070 compared to GTX 1070 or 2070, whatever they are, right? I forget. Their names are stupid too, sort of. It's marginal. It's marginal as fuck. Like, in all honesty, I just think them putting all that shit into, I think, dude, I'm gonna keep it real. Ray tracing is just a gimmick. So the number one is like, the biggest thing is ray tracing, and no one fucking turns that shit on. Any gamer won't fuck with that shit. And like I said, the graphics improvement is marginal. The only reason it does better in some things is because the newer games are abusing this extra headroom, and they don't look that much better. I mean, all I gotta say is look no further than Gotham Knights versus Batman Arkham Asylum on the PS3. How did we go from cards that had maybe 2 gigabytes max, and God knows how many megahertz, whatever, right? That can make a game look that fucking good at 1080p, and then we go to these cards, and it's like, bro, you struggle to do FSR at 1080p and hold 60 FPS, and you have fucking 3 times as much memory. I don't understand. I really don't get that. So a good part of it's just optimization. I think these developers are getting too fucking lazy anyways. I take it for someone who's actually learning how to dev himself and using Unreal Engine. But anyways, that's performance, right? Like, there's marginal, and for some games it might be big. And part of it's software. At the end of the day, it's just software. If the game supports it, it's the software, right? And the funny thing is, if you're not using any GTX card, you're just fucked. Like, so them is, oh, it's a massive. Your game works compared to, oh my god, it works so much better, right? But the second thing I want to get at is, this is where it really gets to the cruxes, and I love that some people did touch on it. They're too expensive. You want me to pay twice as much for a card at MSRP years ago, for a marginal improvement? Sorry for the flashbang, you guys. No, you look at that and go, no. And then on top, and this is to me the final one, this goes into it too, is the power. You get marginal performance boost, but twice as much power consumption. That's just too much money to throw down the fucking toilet, bro. It's insane. And then the other thing that goes into the money is like, dude, and then in the current economy, who the fuck genuinely has the time? Like, the only people who genuinely buy this shit are the exact PC snobs that nobody fucking likes. Straight up. They're the only motherfuckers buying that shit. That's why when they scalped it, no one gave a shit that they fucking actually lowered the price or MSRP, and then the scalpers got fucked. Because it's like, bro, no one wants this shit anyways. No one can buy it. If people are turning in PS5s and Xboxes because they're like, you know what, I have shit to pay for, I could just throw this away, there's no games anyways. But yeah, it's just, as they say, price to performance. It's just not that worth it. Like, you're almost $1,000 up to $1,000, and to me, like, you can see it all the time. All the time. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, the performance gain is just not that big. To me, I'll be more impressed when we see a huge performance gain. And also, for that price, I'm gonna be honest, I'd rather, like, dude, look at this. I'd rather just learn or send my card to get more RAM. Well, it won't do that much. Like, if there's games that, like, obviously for 1060, I mean, it's already got a 6 gig variant. Making it to 8 gig won't do that much, but it would do a lot for a 1070 and a 1080. That was their biggest limitation, right? Is their VRAM, which is also true for these cards. That's another thing. You want to charge that much more, and you have, basically, if you want to take advantage of your card, truly, you have to upgrade the VRAM, which is not cheap. And again, for the price of that, go upgrade your 1070, 1080. This VRAM, you still won't have the same performance, don't get me wrong. But oh my god, will you be so consistent in your frame times? Holy shit. So I highly recommend anyone with a GTX to any 10 series, bro, just upgrade the VRAM, honestly. If you're content with where you are and you just want even a much more smoother gameplay experience, and maybe you're like, you want to bump that graphics up a wee bit more, or that resolution, pump that shit, dog. You know, pair with a modern CPU. See, like, good example, like, I guess third point is when you compare it relative to what was there before, it's just not as impressive. Before we had decent cars, we had like good AM/CPU GPU ones. I forgot what they were called. Whatever, but it's what the consoles have. That was decent from AMD. That was budget, and you didn't have to have a GPU, and they were able to do full AAA titles like Battlefield 1 decently, and like maybe 1080p, 720, 60 FPS, medium low settings. Like, that's pretty impressive. Not bad. And then we went to a full, so we went from that, from AMD, right? And then Intel was, oh, whatever, it had some pretty decent CPU series. And then we go over to AMD Ryzen. Like, the gap was enormous. And then part of it is marketing too, right? Like the name Ryzen, and the fact that you saw, oh, here's this, and here's it was massive improvement. And even there was 3 times the performance boost, different versions, affordable, and low power consumption. How could you compete? And on top of that, we had what, more cores were the standard, while still having high, like, you know, you looked at it from a technical side too, it was just impressive. With the new ones, it's like, oh, we now have ray tracing cores. I'm like, but I'm not using that shit. Power consumptions have more, it's more pricey, the performance is negligible, honestly, until you start to get to more modern games, because developers don't know how to make shit. Because, homie, you can run Power World on a toaster. You know, that's the other thing, especially when you're in the PC safe space. Art style over graphics is now the new trend, so what the fuck are these new cards all about? And half the time, you just pair an old card with a CPU, you're decent. I mean, just look at the bottleneck videos. Fucking crazy. And then on top of that, when no one cares about these new AAA games, like, are you really even using your RTX cards, and then no one knows how to truly take advantage of them? Just, yeah, no. From my perspective, as a very casual PC gamer, in a sense, I have no desire to get an RTX card or whatever. Maybe I do want to think about getting the 2070, only because there's software that you can use that only the newer ones can, and they're doing that on purpose, so they force you to buy one. Now, honestly, if I'm being honest, the only card, like I said, 2070, because it's just the 1070, but with like ray tracing course and the new software, and that's about it. And it's twice as expensive. And that one small form factor GPU, that's where I think we need to go. Small form factor GPUs for small build PCs. You can put them on anything. I forgot which one it was called. There's a video, like the King, like, waste absolutely no power. It's about no stronger than a 1060 if I last recall. But again, there's something that's that small and wastes that much power. Like, bro, they should be putting this in fucking gaming laptops. It's so fucking impressive. I just think, like, everyone knows Nvidia's got their high horse on, like, these overpriced, overpowered, not even overpowered, like power wise, like power consumption, like, nah. Maybe in the next generation. But again, going back, like I said, when we went to the GTX 10 fucking series, you know, especially as a console gamer, like, bro, you get me, remember, we went from having, what, 1 to 4 gigs max. I always remember, like, megabits. We motherfuckers were talking to megabits, and then we go to, oh, GTX, 2 gig was the minimum. There's, like, 3 gig cards, 6, 8. It was like, you know, fucking balls deep, bro. And then GTX, the look, the marketing. And then when you compare, like, the average PS4 game to a fucking, like, GTX card game, you're like, oh fuck, it was massive. And especially when you compare it to the PS3 era. This one, it's like, bro, I'm gonna keep it real. I can barely see the difference between like a PS5 title and a fucking PC title. Straight up. I don't see it. You know, like, oh, this one runs at full native 4K, and here's better ray tracing. It's like, I don't care. This one runs at 165 FPS, 120, and yeah, don't get me wrong, it's a difference, but when you play it, most people don't really tell the difference outside of 60 and 120. So to the average person, like, you know, oh, what fucks this do? Like, the only time I would be is, I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a difference. Like, don't get me wrong, if you get, like, let's say the most optimized PC game and just some random PS5 game, and you compare them, like, oh yeah, there's no difference. I mean, obviously when you have a way stronger CPU, but if you pair it with an equivalent CPU of a PS5, or let's say weaker, right, and you put, like, not the most high-end RTX card, and then because any RTX card is better than the PS5 one, then, you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, still relative difference, but is it big enough for me to care? Not really, no. Outside of frame rate. And again, that's what we really care about. And, oh, ray trace course, man, who gives a shit? But yeah, that's just my take on it. No one has the money for this shit. No one's gonna put money for it. And again, so negligible. So negligible. I don't know. For me, any real gamer, we're fucking with indie titles. It's the generation of indie titles, bro. I give it 10 years before AAA games start being good again, outside of a handful of scraps. We already had this in the PS4 era. Like, bro, if I mean, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of good games, but people ask me, oh, what are some of the best games of the last generation? It's like, oh, Neo and Doom. And it's like, there's other ones that getting good, but those two are just peak. You're telling me in all the 10 years since the PS3 fucked off, we've only had 2 really god tier titles where the PS3 had like at least 10? Like, nah, that's crazy. But yeah, that's it. That's my thoughts on the whole GPU thing. I wanted to add my 2 cents to it. As an also broke gamer, like, I can't, bro. If I'm gonna spend that much money, that low profile graphics card, that's god tier as fuck. But yeah, there you go. That's all for today. I'll catch you guys later.